Thank you all for attending, and thank you guys for coming in person and keeping me entertained. But we do have just this one item for the January DAP, and we are being recorded. This is going to run just a little differently than last time. As you know, we did not send out a memo. We gave the applicant a little bit more time to prepare their submission, which they provided to us on Friday, and we forwarded to you all with the meeting information. And so this is a carryover from the item from you saw in December, 7475 Wisconsin Avenue, which is that concept plan. But again, they're going through the expedited review process. So we should be treating this review a little bit more like concept plan, because the next time they come in, it will just be one review, which we would be expecting site plan level detail. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to the applicant to go through the submission and go through the changes that were made since the last meeting.
Sure. Thanks, Grace. I will share my screen. Can everybody see it?
Yep.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Just to remind everyone, I'm Chris Huffer, principal with SK&I Architecture. It's good to see everybody again, and sorry we couldn't be there in person. So last month we met with you all to discuss Bethesda Crafted project, and we kind of came away with three main points that we were asked to continue focusing on in a little bit more detail to come back to you today. And three being the corner articulation of this intersection, how is base, middle, top, which is in the guidelines shown and worked into the architecture for the tower, as well as the setback tail of the tower as well. And just a little bit more detail on how we envision the metro access to the tunnel that connects at the corner of our site and how that's activated through the base. So here on the left-hand side was the basic massing that we presented to you all last time. And on the right here is kind of the next steps we've taken through thinking through the architecture and massing of this project here. So I'll just keep going through here. One of the main things that we focused on, we talked about a little bit last time, is the importance of this corner and how we felt like, this angle that you're seeing now is kind of the most important view that you see for this structure. But we also wanted to make sure that, it was activated throughout the whole building. So, one thing we were doing was looking at how can we bring some activation up through the base level on the street level, and how can we bring people's eyes up. So we were looking at ways on articulating the massing, on connecting to the corner, and kind of really focusing the energy up and through the building. So you can see on Wisconsin here, we're looking at creating this datum that raises up the base a little bit, creates a very clear and activated retail streetscape, but then that brings the energy to the corner with this kind of chamfering energy all the way up through this recessed balcony up into the tower, culminating in the highest point of the building here, and really focusing on the energy and trying to bring some verticality to the corner, but also integrating the top through the middle to the base of the building. So on the right, you can see a lot of the architecture we've been kind of looking at in different ways to kind of keep a simple massing, unique, but bringing that energy down and creating a significant moment at this corner here. Even though that view looking up Old Georgetown is kind of the most dynamic view, we also felt that coming straight down Wisconsin was also an important view. So you can see here on the left, this is the view that you'd see approaching going south on Wisconsin. And as we chamfer the base here, it basically opens up the facade to the corner. So it's not just a one directional move. You can kind of see it flowing through every elevation here and bringing the energy up through the building. In order to really activate and kind of create that base, middle, top, you can see that we've started chamfering or peeling back the corner on both sides, creating this horizontal datum on both Wisconsin and east-west. Currently, we're setting them at two different levels because they both have two different kind of expressions. On east-west, the whole tower is basically, we're trying to ground this here and kind of create this building wall here that creates, that focuses the energy and brings prominence to this elevation. But also on east-west, the base activation is just a little bit lower as we go through the site, as you go all the way to 4600 and through and farther east on Wisconsin. So we have a 4-story articulation here that takes another step down as you go through the site. And then we have a 5-story articulation on Wisconsin, which corresponds a little bit better with the existing office building right next to us on our site, but also as you go further down Wisconsin and across the street at the Gray Star Building, at Saul, and all going all the way down to the Elm and Stonebridge's building here as well. So trying to kind of keep and look at the adjacent context in both streets and adapt the base to respond to that in each direction. There was a little bit of talk about the second half of the building, really, as we go down east-west. One of the important things we mentioned was we were looking to set back the base and the tower much farther back on the second half of the building to give the corner part of the building the prominence it deserves, but also second, to kind of increase the width and the depth of the streetscape here to further increase the potential for activation and greenery here. East-west highway, as we've mentioned, is designated a canopy corridor, which obviously wants to have as much greenery as possible, especially potentially a second row of trees. So you can kind of see here, and there'll be a sketch further on as we've started to work with our landscape architects. But this kind of shows that with creating that depth, we're able to create the second row of trees here to really create this canopy corridor for the building, which then creates this buffer between the building and the activated either retail or amenity space and the sidewalk as well. Further looking at this corner, you see a little bit more detail of the second half of the building, the lower tail of the building, as we call it, where we are also utilizing a base, middle, top design, integrating with recessed balconies and kind of having a cut between the main tower and this tower through here. And then, on the right, the precedents we're looking at, trying to elevate this base level, kind of using some mid-century modern, moves that kind of really activate and give opportunity for shade and depth for the streetscape down here. Another point that was kind of a little bit touched on that we just wanted to kind of bring into focus a little bit, since we didn't focus on it, but we assumed that there would be some questions, was the connection between phase 1 and phase 2. And obviously phase 2 is not part of this application, but we talked about how we've been planning the ground floor and the garage and loading access to accommodate a future phase 2 and how that alley works. But we didn't really get fully into the the potential massing, but we just wanted to show this view of the south face and how we kind of envision there a potential connection here. Obviously, phase 2 is not part of this mission, and down the road, we're not even sure if our clients will be the ones developing this. So everything here is just kind of conjecture, but we're anticipating providing multiple setbacks as you connect through these phases. So as you see, we talked about here, the tower kind of chamfers back, creating this base on Wisconsin. But as that angle comes back, it's creating more and more depth on this area where it's set back again. And you can kind of see here on the top right of the plan all these kind of levels of setbacks. Whereas at this middle portion, the building's set back about 60 feet. And for the main tower portion, we're envisioning that there's at least the minimum, 45-foot separation between the major points of each building here. It came to attention at our last meeting that, not a lot of people were super familiar with the metro access at the corner of 74, 75 Wisconsin. So these are a bunch of pictures of the interior space of this existing connection down to the tunnel that goes under the street that connects to the metro. So obviously on the top left is looking at the corner as it exists today. And these other two top images and the bottom left are all images kind of at that ground floor, looking around the kind of the double height space that's provided here at the ground floor and looking down into the double height space going down. So I think last time we mentioned there's about a 2-story difference between the ground level and the bottom of this these escalators here coming down, excuse me, connecting to the metro. So these bottom two images are you coming down these escalators. You can kind of see the sign here for that metro access, and then the tunnel is through these doors on the left or straight through on the right here. Working with our landscape architects, we're looking at ways to, green up both Wisconsin and East-West Highway, but also they've been helping us look at different ways to approach this stair access down to the metro. So you can see this is kind of the concept we're looking at the ground floor. This oval here extends a little bit beyond the build to line, but this is where the existing structure is, where that existing corner is. So if I go back one page, we're looking at kind of keeping the structure here of this corner of the existing structure, which is all these columns, this area here for the garage. As we are rebuilding the garage, as I think we talked about last time, we're anticipating reusing the foundation walls of the existing garage, but infilling with new structure so we can build to the full height for this tower. So there's going to be structure all the way down in this area and extends out to the phase line, and then coming all the way across to the rest of the phase. And so we thought, why not take advantage of this open public space as it is today? It's a pretty big setback for the corner, but also gives us an opportunity to really make this at the bottom level, the street level, feel a lot more open, even though it is coming into public space a little bit here. So a few closer up images of how this area is looking. We wanted to make sure that the metro entrance was kind of integrated into this corner move, but it wasn't necessarily celebrated as the point of the move. We wanted to kind of seamlessly blend with the architecture of the building so that it felt natural, but wasn't the dictator of the move itself. So with that move coming up, the building chamfers out by the second story here. The whole stair ends up being covered because of where the setbacks and the cantilevers are. But the goal is really to kind of open up that corner. And even though that the base comes out a little bit, as you'll see on the next couple images, it really feels open and friendly and welcoming to everybody at the street level.
Could you just clarify where the overhangs are and how much of that opening is being actually covered?
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to get out of this view real quick so it'll be a little easier to show. So the building tower itself comes all the way here. And so we have on those first few levels, we're going from this angled structure all the way to that point. So all those balconies start cantilevering out at a point that, essentially it's going, something like
And
this.
how high above it?
It's at like third
It's
floor.
quite high above it, right?
10 stories up.
Yeah, the first one is about at 30 feet up.
It's gonna feel very exposed.
Here. But as you can see here, so that's that opening coming down the stair. We're looking at concepts where this area feels very green, so it doesn't feel like a pit. I think the idea is we're looking at ways to make this stair kind of feel like it's a floating element within two walls of green going up, so it feels very welcoming and calm.
It's a stair and an escalator. Is it within the building?
So there is no escalator. There will be an elevator, and I'll show you on the plan on this, but because this isn't going to be necessarily enclosed in the building, or doesn't have a typical, main metro entrance cover, escalators, break down all the time. We felt that having the stair would be more appropriate and a little bit more ease of use. And then we have an elevator for accessible use. So this is a view looking up. So you can see, the building starting to cantilever over here. And really our goal was, as soon as you come out of the tunnel, you can kind of see the sky. So it doesn't feel dark and gloomy. You want to feel, it feels welcoming as possible. But the idea is to try to incorporate green on either side, whether it's incorporated on the wall or on the side, and creating a vision going up through there. So these are just very rough.
Robert has your,
Uh,
Robert, you have your hand raised. Do you want
Yeah,
to?
hey, Chris, can I
Yes.
interrupt real quick?
Yeah.
What's the width of the stair drawn, just so we understand the scale? What width is the stair
I
in that
believe
view?
I believe the stair is currently 10 feet wide on the stair.
That's right.
Okay.
And Chris, one more question.
Yes.
So, the shadow that we're seeing in this view, is that based on a sun study or has the team done that as yet?
All the shadows are based off of the building has been geolocated. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what time and date the shadows shown here are at.
Okay.
Yeah. But it is on the west side of the building. So I think, for the second half of the day, it would be have a lot of sun coming in here, and plus just the exposure and the aperture being as wide and open as possible, I think will benefit bringing in as much sunlight as possible.
Hey, Chris, or anyone else from MRP, what is the business relationship with WMATA? What is the partnership? What is that about?
There's
Hey,
just
sorry,
an
I'm on
easement.
mute. Go ahead.
There's an easement that's been in place for many years before MRP and their partner acquired the property last year. So it's just been there, for many decades, and they were required to provide the access point, their predecessor.
And then does WMATA involved in the design process and the functioning of it and the payment of
Yes.
it? I mean, we'll keep going with the relationship.
They don't maintain this part of it where the easement is, but we have to go, any project that is near WMATA facilities, even without something this integrated, has to go through their joint development adjacent construction program. So we're just in the early stages of that, but we'll be coordinating the design with them.
Yeah, and this is Nick with MRP. Sorry. Thanks for stepping in there, Matt. Yeah, as Matt said, we've engaged with them. Kind of got the invoice, got the original agreement, and we're off and running from them.
And do they participate in the cost of that, making the improvements?
I don't know. It's going to be
Yeah,
borne
we're
by
not,
the
we're not
developer.
expecting. Yeah, we're not expecting
Yeah.
them.
They
If
have
they
a
want,
hefty-
if they want to, they can.
they have a
No, I
pretty
just don't know.
significant
Again, I
review
mean,
fee.
I just try to understand what the limitations of the partnership are, because I think that may put limitations on the design. I don't know, but I'm just
Yeah,
curious.
it's partnership. It's more of a, like, we have to satisfy their requirements. The way that, so it truly is sort of a public amenity that the project is upgrading largely at their expense.
Okay, thank you.
Chris, you mentioned that there is an elevator besides the stair. And that's for Metro. Okay, I see.
Yeah,
That's where
so
it comes.
so here on the left, you can see the dashed in tunnel. This is the G2 level. So you come in, and we've kind of kept, we're looking at keeping this kind of same width that's existing open. So you open here, you'll see the building kind of come up wall here. You have your stair here, greenery coming up, and you'll have an elevator with its own little vestibule that comes up to the right here, and it'll have a vestibule lobby that will exit straight onto the street level.
Okay.
Yep. So I think part of this we're looking into, and by no means is all of this design final. We're still working through a lot of the technical aspects of the shape of the stair, the rotation, the angle and everything. But one thing we're looking at doing on this side here, and obviously this is the G2 level, but on the G1 level, you're going to have some of this area exposed here. So we're looking, this is this area here. This is the the G1 level, somewhere in the middle here. We're looking at putting our bike room there, and having potentially glazing coming in there, and creating that activation through that, and bringing light into the bike room. That would be behind the ramp there next to the stair. So that kind of concludes the items that we're here to present. So if there's more questions, I'm happy to answer from everybody.
I think there was a question on the screen about the size of elevator and its ability to accommodate bicycles. That's a WMATA elevator requirement, right?
I am not entirely sure. We'll double check on that, but I think the size of this elevator would be appropriately sized. We'll do that coordination.
I mean, it looks like it would be the size of it that's wrong.
Yeah.
And Chris, you mentioned that your team is working on the shape of the staircase because some of the precedent images you show are pretty interesting. Obviously, there's a space limitation there, so I'm not sure what's achievable versus a straight one coming down, because the images on the previous page, I feel like they really go well with everything that's happening on the building, just in terms of seamlessly integrating them together. But would be interested to see how that may evolve from here.
Yep. Yeah, I think we're making sure we're coordinating and making sure everything's structurally feasible. So where do the columns need to be? Where's this foundation wall going to be?
Previous design show this external stair.
No.
And kind of coordinating that as we go.
Yeah, and just a couple of comments on the same topic. So when you go to the view from the bottom level, I think just making sure the sun study, I'm sure it works, with the way it's facing. It seems like there could be an interesting opportunity for some art here as well, especially if you find through the study that there are some areas which may not be feasible for planting, that could be an option to consider in this area. Just to, brighten it up and make it more welcoming.
Yeah, and I think, we're fairly preliminary on this aspect of the planting, but I think, Oculus is looking at, ways that, we can integrate some trees or things that can grow taller into the space, like basically come through the space. We didn't want this to be like a dark trash pit. So, looking at ways how we can kind of terrace things up, this is just very preliminary, but ways that we can really continue to activate that with the planting. And because that aperture is so open and wide, we felt that it will get a lot of sunlight and, and be able to grow. But yeah, I think in terms of other, depending what it is, where the levels are, there is opportunity to, make sure that we activate the walls that aren't activated with either the bike room or planting in here.
Sounds good.
Can I jump in on this? I guess I'm David Lee. For people I haven't met, hi everyone. I was semi at the last meeting and didn't get the benefit of your full presentation, but I'm struggling with this, and this general approach of having this stairway entrance right at the corner of this building. It really feels to me like I cannot imagine a way that you're going to design your way out of this feeling like a pit. It seems inevitable. That large wall at the corner of the building that is going to sort of force pedestrians to kind of swing around sort of further than they naturally would feels very anti-urban. Not what you would want at a sort of highly urban corner like this. When you combine that with all the sort of bump outs in the planting areas along the sidewalks that you showed on the building, it just feels like you're going to have pedestrians sort of slaloming around the building in a way that maybe looks sort of interesting on paper, but I don't think it's the way anybody wants to walk in reality. And it seems to me that this, if you can't enclose the entrance to the metro as it is now, it's not a great way to get to the metro, but at least it allows the building to hold the corner. And it just seems to me that in this space, you really want to have the building holding the corner. This entrance doesn't feel to me at all integrated to the building. It just feels like the building is kind of making way for it. And so I guess I really want to hear why it's essential to do it this way. Yeah, I think it'd be better to just have it back under the building canopy properly in the way that you showed in some of these other images and the way that there are lots of examples of in the district. You know, some of the ones in the district are, I would argue that the ceilings are too low hanging, but at least they let the building sort of hold the corner in the way that I think you want in an urban setting like this.
Yeah, I think, you know, our thought was there's the existing, I mean, it's currently within the building now. It's very hard to find. Not a lot of people know it's there. It's not very user friendly. And so our thought was, how can we make this more user friendly? So the main, and you know, this is the secondary access point for the metro. This is not the main entrance per se. On the other side, there is a singular stair going down, no canopy. It's not really separated. You have the whole pit of the whole area, you know, going down on that other side. So, you know, we felt that, you know, this was honestly a step up in terms of, you know, public access. People would actually know that you can go into this building and go down. You know, currently a lot of people just don't even know it's there. I mean, I can't tell you how many, like our office is right down the block, and can't tell you how many times I've been asked, how do I get to the metro?
Multiple times.
It's very hidden.
For me.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with you
Yeah.
that it's very hidden. I just have to imagine that there's probably another way to solve it. But I don't think that putting another pit on this side of the street is the solution. Again, I'll wait to hear what my fellow DAP members think about it. But again, it feels very, it's a very odd configuration for a prominent building corner. To have a wall there. And you know, the greenery thing, again, this is a very urban setting. To me, it's not crying out to be green. I mean, obviously it should have trees around it, sure, but I don't think that this space is crying out to be green.
Could you, Chris, could you go back to the overall massing diagrams? Maybe tie the two conversations together.
Yeah.
So I'll weigh in on some massing comments and address David's comments as well. I think you could design the access at the street level, but I think it's very cramped right now. So unless there's a way to enlarge that opening into the building, underneath the building, as opposed to in the public realm, I would say it's just feeling constrained at the ground level on the urban pedestrian realm. I want to just take a step back and talk about the building massing because we haven't addressed the updates yet. And I think the updated asymmetry and spiraling are interesting in the building. I'm looking at the image on this page. Could you go to the before and after, Chris? I think it's maybe the page before. So I think that's a welcome change, the shifting and the weighting of the building from north to south and the spiraling and pinwheeling is very nice. It's a nice development. I think the balconies are fighting your concept, which is somewhere between floating volumes and floating planes. I'd look for that to be strengthened. I think the balconies that interrupt the planes are contrary to your precedent images and might be hurting your scheme, but I think the direction is interesting. I find it interesting between the asymmetry, the expression of the top, and the floating elements. It falls apart a little bit with some of the balcony crowding at the corners, etc. I think the massing does set up something special at the corner for the entrance to the metro, but I agree with David that it's just very tight and seems like you're not creating enough space for it to be successful. It is also kind of interesting, you know, I'd be curious what others think, but you do have a major entrance plaza for the metro across the street. So it is interesting to think of just how important is this entrance on the other side of Wisconsin Avenue, given the large plaza across the street that provides access. So either I was looking at your plans, it looks like you're not unable to recess further under the building. If you could create more of a recess underneath the building and save some of the sidewalk areas, that might be an option. I'm just kind of sharing my immediate reactions, but I agree with David. I like the massing development and the intent of it. I think it's going in a good direction. I think the ground plane is problematic at the corner currently.
I agree with the comments so far. At the corner, I like the asymmetry of the two planes, perhaps because this is a residential building and you cannot get rid of the balconies on the corner. Perhaps they could be recessed to make the planes more prominent, just at the corner. Yes, it is a little bit suffocating where the metro, secondary metro entrance is at the corner, and it's kind of killing your concept. Whereas this elegant opening of the corner on the facade with this very restrained, constrained, tight entrance that is not yet sculptural. And I do understand that you have existing structural constraints, as well as that it's not a main entry to the metro. How do you do that? We don't quite understand yet, because you are more familiar with all the restrictions that you have to deal with, as well as WMATA requirements, right? So it's not just structure, it's also WMATA requirements. It's yeah, and one more thing I was thinking was, yeah, stair is exposed. There's no canopy as you're coming up the stair. I do understand that you're covered at some point, but we were discussing between ourselves that's perhaps a little bit too high, right? So you're gonna get rained on, snowed on. But again, this is a secondary entry. So there is an opportunity to do something sculptural. Massing for the building, I think it's very much welcome and change. I think it looks great. I like that the building in the back is more set back and gives more prominence to the building on the corner. So I look forward to the materiality, how you will develop that. I think Atul wants to say something.
Can I add some, I'm gonna try it from the developer's position, because MRP, that's why I'm on the panel. If you can go to page 05 for a second, Chris. So speaking with someone, myself being that person with a weak chin, that building at the base looks like a weak chin. And what I mean by that is too much credibility or deference is given to the metro stop. And I personally don't think there's enough muscle on that corner in the architecture. And I don't know if there's a way to better incorporate the metro. It's incredibly important, I think, from a developer perspective, because I think it markets the building relative to being right on top of a metro stop. So from a building perspective, it's all residential, and the building twin next door would likely be residential, and the one around the corner is going to be residential. I think the metro is not secondary. I think it's a primary use, but how it gets integrated into the urban fabric at ground level, I just feel like it needs to be paid more attention to in the architecture of the building and the base of the building. And I think as the investor, I would rather have a stronger muscular, and you show it in some of your precedent images, a stronger muscular ground plane, the base, if you will, the first 50 feet just seemed timid. And I think the weak chin in my description sets it up as being timid. I think some of the discussion points that Yuli and Robert have made relative to the balconies are also important. The balconies are important from an income perspective, because I think you guys are going to get a premium rent for the balconies. How those get integrated and take it out of the true vertical zipper form and put it into some curving way to go up the building will add interest to the plane of the building face. And then also then bring that building into what I think is a very iconic opportunity. There aren't many corners like this in Bethesda. This may be one of two. that has an opportunity to do something incredibly special design-wise. And I'm not saying bust the budget to achieve that, but I do believe the design needs to be studied more in its comprehensive nature with a much stronger muscular base integrated with the metro. I think your retail GLA will pay the rent at that important corner to help pay for the costs if you find yourself dealing with some premium costs in the base, if it's dealt with more sensitively. And then the middle, like I refer to my associates here on the DAP, some of the comments made, and the top, I still struggle a little bit with because I just don't know what it gets me. If you can go to the one image that shows the top more, Chris, and it looks like these big, I'll call it parapet walls, right there. I mean, I don't know if there's an outdoor function on the roof, how those walls might be like the far image on the right that are changed in scale, that go up and down a little bit to also articulate the top of the building a little bit differently. It just looks rather mono nature in its form when I'm looking at that. So those are my investor, developer comments. It's a great piece of real estate. Your rents will support the costs of a design that will make sense. So I just think the design needs to be further recognizing, taking a bet, having the courage that the rents are going to pay for the cost and you'll have a accretive investment. How's that?
Hey, Matt, can I ask a question? Is Matt, this is to you, from Land Use Council, is the opening in the sidewalk a requirement from WMATA, the stair access?
Under the terms of the easement, we have to accommodate like continued access, so it could be done different
Inside.
ways. Yeah, and but Nick's, I mean, what our experience is, my building's 2 blocks down, nobody uses it. Everybody walks across Wisconsin Avenue. It's so underutilized. That space is terrible. I mean, it's just, we wanted to go in opposite direction was from our experience,
Yeah.
So that.
Yeah, I think sorry, this is Nick. I think that one of the, in terms of the design, we have SK&I for some of the details, but I think the really big push from our end on making it exterior is just, I mean, I'm there most days. People really don't know that it's there and don't use it. And so I think we're trying to react to, the realities of the situation there where it being in the building is not, where it doesn't work. So we thought that this was a, a way to actually get people to use it and know it's there. And so that's just, again, just wanted to give kind of the background on that thought of changing that. And it's real kind of live feedback from what's going on there.
Nick, I would imagine that, you're 1 block from Metro regardless. So the benefit of Metro is there, right? I mean, you're right across the street from Metro regardless.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know how important it is to have the big opening and the big entrance on your site. I mean, you could be discreet like a New York subway entrance, but do it in an elegant way if you don't want to give up the ground plane. I guess I am also just kind of struggling with, is it really required? Is it the best urban planning to have another big opening right across the street from a big entry plaza for Metro?
Hey, Chris, go to page 08 for a second, because I think as this point's being discussed, that'll help.
It's
08.
Oh, wait, one more.
One more.
So wait,
08.
sorry. This one.
Nope.
Plan, you want to see the plan?
Yeah, the plan view of the corner.
The landscape plan?
No, not
Yeah.
the land. Well, it's the retail amenity. Keep going. 08. What is that? That's
7.
one more page.
Oh, here. Sorry.
Yeah, there you go. So giving the stair and the pit to the Metro I think is a bad business decision for the investors. And so I think that really needs to be thought through. And you need, in that, it's an overused word, but maybe the wrong word, is celebrate that corner differently at the ground. That just needs to be changed. That green half moon should be retail, should be something other than plants below grade. It's just not a good, in my opinion, urban design solution. So if you take that stair, for example, and you turn it so it's 45 degrees, you take that 45-degree angle, you turn it towards the word amenity, and then you come back over the ramp. I think you probably still have your clearance over your ramp. And then maybe you do a switchback stair somehow, but somehow that stair, as it's shown, and the half moon should somehow be better integrated with the human experience than looking into a pit.
That's all? Yeah.
I'm saying paralleling, make it parallel.
Yeah, parallel to
Yeah,
Wisconsin,
no, I agree.
and then switchback.
Either side.
In Robert's idea of using the New York model, I mean, it can be a elegant little, closet entranceway into the metro. If it's truly secondary and that's the way it's going to be used and viewed, then go for it. But let the architecture of the building dictate it, not let the metro access dictate what's happening on that corner.
It's like no in between. It's either concealed or open, lots of space. And I don't
Yeah,
think.
they don't have the space for a big open one, I don't think.
Like you could do like the Klaus Oldenburg clothespin in Philadelphia, right? I mean, like there's something on that corner that can partner with architecture more so than that pit. And frankly, if that pit ends up being there, I would put a top over it, and then I would do something integral with the building. And I wouldn't just looking down into a hole like the Rockefeller Center. It's not the Rockefeller Center, right? I'm not looking down into ice skating rink.
But mind you, I said this before, but the way that wall comes out and sort of crowds that corner, again, just feels very much not what anybody wants to have to walk around. And I think it's going to deaden the corner rather than activate it.
Here's a question. Using Robert's model in New York, if you take the elevator and you have the stairs start there and go down, have the elevator and the stairs start together versus apart, maybe that is a driver of design.
And then give the corner back to retail, right?
Yeah. I mean, if I was investing in it, I would want to celebrate that corner from an income standpoint and an image standpoint, and obviously going up into the full height. Hey, Chris, what's the height? How many stories is this building total?
29.
And the core is right in the middle, I assume, right? Where you can see it right there.
Yeah, it's in the middle of the tower portion. Yes.
Have you worked out a residential floor plate yet that shows the core and the hallways?
Yeah.
Because it's not in the application.
In the first one they were showing.
They did that, but I don't know if it seems like it's changed.
Yeah, we have that.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, we haven't. That really hasn't changed since then. I think the skin's changed a little bit, but not the core. The core is kind of set. It's a very limited floor plate for what's allowed within the 250 or 290, height zone for our site, because the reason we have the tails or the step down really halfway through is because it splits from the 290 to the 170.
Well, how about that? How about why do the stairs at all? Let's just do the elevator. Do 2 elevators.
They may be required for
Yeah.
egress, for pedestrian, fire, and there's a tunnel, they have to connect to the tunnel, so you can't just do an elevator. You can't do a dead end tunnel underground.
Yeah, I do have a separate point to talk about, but I want to defer to Sandeep first and see if she wants to make her comments before we pivot to a different part of the building.
Thanks, Atul. I was just wanting to also make a few comments on the ground plane outside of, the building, the metro entrance we're talking about, which I agree that I think the circular shape just seems like there's a clash between generally the shape and form of the building and what it's doing on the ground plane. I do appreciate sort of how the forms are starting to lay out on the ground, but definitely want to see a little bit more intention in what these spaces are, because there's some thought that seems like it's on Wisconsin, and it seems like the thought has changed a little bit on the other along the other street. So I think just consolidating that idea into one and really stitching everything together on the ground plane, I think that would be helpful to see where this evolves. Also, I understand that the landscape architect still is doing some work, but also how the retail on Wisconsin is, interacting with what's happening on the outside. Like, I don't understand what those two spaces are doing necessarily in terms of like scale, and are they just benches or what they might be. There are some planted pots on here as well, which again seems like an idea that started but didn't really get to the finish line. So I think just seeing a little bit more intentionality on from a landscape perspective. I mean, I really like how the trees are starting to frame the corner. I think that's great. And it shows well on the view as well. But I think just need to see a little bit more on what's happening on the at the ground level.
Yeah, I think,
that's all.
yeah, I mean, from last time to this time, I think the goal is to get there at the site plan. We've just been really starting to dig in, especially on the landscape plan here. So that's obviously, those are good comments, and we'll take those as we kind of further develop. But this is kind of, our first preliminary sketch. We wanted to show you guys something besides words. But yeah, noted.
Could you just?
I have go ahead. Please.
I was just gonna make one quick comment here. Chris, thank you for sort of walking us through this. I think what you're hearing from the DAP, moves on the massing are going in the right direction. You've heard some clear guidance on the metro entrance. From a staff's perspective, we are open to either of those two approaches, either really downplaying the entrance and putting it kind of in the building, or coming up with a way to make it more muscular and covered and protected. Like those are, I just want to make sure that from the staff's perspective, we're flexible, but it'll be important to have functionality to this entrance, especially weather protection. My question is one that Paul had raised when we internally looked at this, and it seems to me that there's an alley to the right of this building, which now connects down to the internal circulation alley system that's going to run internal to the block. And previously, if I remember correctly, the ramp used to be right off that alley when you came in. Now the ramp entrance has moved down south to the building. And we were just sort of wondering and raising this as an opportunity or a discussion to say, do you need that alley now off of east-west, or could you make your building bigger on that, or is that not a part of this property? Like, what is the piece at play there? I think we just want to make sure we are all on the same page.
Well, I think it's kind of twofold. We felt that, especially, while this building's getting developed, adding an extra, ingress egress from this back alley would ultimately be beneficial for not only this phase but the site in general, especially if you kind of picture right now this the corner office building here, 4600, it's loading and garage entry are also off this alley coming in through this point here, and then say down the road a phase 2 is built and this whole area is blocked off. Having another means for people to get in and out of this block in that interim, we think is very important. But even at the end of the day, we think it's important for the whole circulation of the site, especially because Montgomery Avenue and east-west in these locations are one way. And additionally, we have the Waverly garage here, which is a public garage that spans Waverly, and it's a very big garage. And we kind of felt that, especially moving the garage and loading entrances off of that alley makes this much more pedestrian friendly. There's currently an access point like right down here at the alley for steps down from this garage, and we kind of felt that ultimately it's a good connection for people parking here to get out to east-west without having to go all the way around. So in terms of overall site access, it provides pedestrians and vehicular cars additional points that just will activate and make the site easier.
Hey, Chris, could you and we can't move the building back because of that office building. We also own that, so we need to think about how to maintain value there.
And that office building is still market responsive and doing well. It's in the context for this first phase, these two buildings, one of them's completely vacant, the other one's highly vacant. They're really just not the highest and best use of that corner. We agree that it's an important project and we need to do it right. But we're trying to get direction here, and I think we can look at those two options so that we can come back to you at a site plan. But our timing is critical. We want to use the expedited review process. So I think we're hoping we can get clear direction, and you'll give the design team the leeway to kind of study these issues further and come back to you in the spring at a site plan level. Because we can't really keep going through concept plan over and over again if we want to realize the vision for this project.
So I just to sort of close this, it sounds like there are windows and things along that facade of the existing building. Is that right, Chris?
Yes. Yeah. So
Okay,
this whole, there's 10 stories of activated, office space going up here. So as Nick said, we don't want to build right next to it because it is a functioning office building. And that was kind of also one of the points of wanting us to move this tail back as far as we were on the tower, is it also gives that view corridor for those offices as well.
That's helpful to know. Thank you for clarifying that. I do think this ties into some of the comments that Sandeep was making previously, to really think of that alley in a way, and the entrance part of that alley in a way that's more biased towards the space along east-west in its treatment versus a utilitarian kind of inlet into this, given that there are two other ways to get into the garage. So I'll stop there. I think that was the one piece I want to make sure we covered. So thank you. I'll turn it back to you,
on
Grace.
the alley treatment, just one quick point is, if the idea is that pedestrians will utilize a portion of it, I think it would be important to maybe through materiality sort of make that clear where they need to be walking, just so from a safety perspective that can be taken care of. So so I think that would be good to see.
I wanted to just say one thing about the massing. I definitely heard my friend's enthusiasm for it. I'm a little, I think I want to echo something I think I heard Rob saying about there's sort of a lack of clarity about, I think, what's happening on some of the facades as they go up. Like they seem to kind of, the building feels like it's trying to sort of make up its mind to me what it wants to be. There are a lot of moves on the building, and I think sort of, I'm always a sort of proponent for this, but sort of simplicity and clarity a bit more, like the way those balconies sort of protrude from those planes or appear to, I think Rob was suggesting, kind of seems to kind of be a little in tension, and maybe not in an interesting way. The other thing I wanted to ask a question about was the way the building is angled, for example, on Wisconsin Avenue at the ground plane, like rather than being just parallel to the street, which I think normally is what is like the sort of typical move. And it strikes me that I'm not sure what that adds, I guess. And I think it's worth thinking about is, should that just be, parallel to the street on both sides? And I guess unless we see a lot of, I think it's very easy to look around in Bethesda and see these buildings that have these like rather small undulations to them that I think give the kind of take away from the sense of rhythm of the buildings as you sort of walk or drive down the street. And I think they're meant to create visual interest, but the moves tend to be so small, but that they add complexity without really adding much interest, I guess is what I would say. And so I would just urge you to think about if maybe there's some ways to think about making this building more basic and sort of more rigorous with whatever idea you decide to follow with it. The one other thing I wanted to ask about is we saw very little of the building that's set back, the portion of the building that's set back further along East-West Highway. And it's a little unclear to me sort of what the goal is for that. It looks like really it's a separate building in that image. And maybe that's fine, but I would be very curious to sort of see how those buildings are going to relate, because they just look, to my eye from this rendering, they look like they're speaking in a very different languages. So like that, yeah. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, I think, for the massing, we're intentionally pushing it back. We're still developing the materiality of both of these towers. So I think, I appreciate everybody's comments on the location and depth of the balconies and how they integrate with the planes. And that's definitely something we'll take a look at as we work through the materiality of these. So, as Matt said, this is our concept level. We took it a little bit farther in terms of the articulation to address some of the comments from our previous one, but we're still working through all the details of everything on this. So I appreciate these comments, and obviously that's part of the next study of our design. I think in terms of just want to address one of the reasons why we are kind of chamfering the tower back is the guidelines recommended to have these base setback recommendations 5-10 feet, and on a lot of sites that's not always a feasible thing to do in terms of that, and a lot of times it creates a very basic waiting cake, and especially with this site, it's a very tight site. I mean, it looks big, but it's not. So the floor plate essentially for the tower is about 100 by 100, and then so you start setting back, the floor plate becomes inefficient in terms of once you put all of the core elements in there. So, ideally the minimum floor plate you'd like to have is like 12,000 feet. We're about 11,000 right now in trying to, create a feasible working plan that can be developed and rented. So, one thing we're trying to do is look at unique ways of how do we create these base, middle, top readings while keeping the feasibility of the project. So that's kind of why you're seeing, these chamfers here, chamfers there. It kind of creates this horizontal datum that, as we discussed today, is, we'll look at strengthening this even more. And I think that's, what will happen at the next level of design. That materiality is really will help things pop. But we wanted to show that, hey, we're contemplating this, we're thinking of it. How can we do this in a unique way that can maximize the goals of the design guidelines, but also of the client. Just in terms of what we're doing, that's kind of the thought process of it. Obviously we'll continue looking at that as we go through. But some things are more feasible than others, especially on tight sites like this.
It's the gist of the comments that everybody's been making. I wonder if the chamfer that you're showing is fine, but the having a negative space at the base of it into the ground is maybe not. I mean, the chamfer, if it was a plaza below it, all of a sudden becomes a very important public space that people could actually, people at the street level and possibly the retail level could use. And so maybe that's sort of the the kind of the fine point of it, of what could happen there.
Chris, just to add a little bit on the development, I'm just looking at your precedents and just showing them back to you. If you look at the way the planes and the volumes have been articulated on those precedent schemes, those plane elements, volumetric elements, they're winning over the articulation of the surface. They're leading. So I think that's the piece that's missing in an otherwise promising design. It's just strengthening that reading. I personally agree with David's comments on the whole. I think the chamfer along Wisconsin is helping the asymmetry and the corner strength. The planar mid-level chamfer is helping the corner be stronger. So I'm kind of okay with that one. I think the main issue is the articulation of the balconies. It's always a challenge. You can't always afford to give up the space, but I think it's a promising direction. I would just kind of go back to your fundamentals on the volumetric approach and strengthen it.
Yeah, and I think, Robert, as we get into the materiality of it, I think when you look at the precedents, it's a very simple materiality, 1 color, 2 colors max, and how that really strengthens the plane of the field. So that's definitely something that's on our, that we've been looking at already, but it's not there yet. So here it's just showing, hey, here's an articulated grid, how it's working through, where these would be placed. The location of those balconies set back or partly, projecting as is. We're still, fine tuning.
Yeah.
So yeah, we hear
you. Okay. So here at Concept, we're thinking about it at Sketch. These the applicants have already submitted for their concept review, which is the first step in the expedited review process. Does the DAP feel that they can continue to move forward with the overall massing metro station entrance aside? And then in the comments, have the applicant work on how to better integrate that corner and the metro entrance into the base of the building, be it a more muscular design or relocated retail space and a different entrance in the building altogether. I think one question that I have, Matt, for the process that you're working through with WMATA, when do you think that you would have their feedback, like in line with your anticipated process with us? Like, how does that align?
We'll work through it concurrently, but really more of it's at permitting. So I think that's why it's important for us to get our, the expedited commercial plan approved, but we'll keep them in the loop. But I think big picture, we thought that this approach was the right approach, but I think we'll probably find to take sort of the other alternative and make it more secondary, the entrance, but we can study it. And at least from what I've heard, I'm confident that the team can address all these when you see this the next time at site plan. And I think having us come back again would only just make it more challenging to achieve what we're trying to do and delay the project further.
I don't know how, yeah, it is challenging for the design team. Perhaps you show options. But at site plan, you're much more developed. I'm actually okay for the design team to move through to site plan. We are not familiar with the expedited process, so site plan is just the one.
Yeah.
Does that mean
get
if they go
one.
where they're going, does that mean DAP is done reviewing this
No.
and providing guidance?
No, you would have the
No.
chance to review it
Yeah.
at a
We'll-
site plan level.
But we
We-
go to the hearing then, is that how that works? Or how do we have the ability to give input? Is it the same type of meeting?
Yes,
Okay,
it's just more developed.
okay, yeah.
I think maybe the DAP could request that at site plan, the applicant have studied the two options that were discussed in the meeting and show those designs with what ultimately happens
Sorry, the two options for,
Entrance to the
for the
metro.
entrance.
oh, okay. To me, the pit at the corner just feels like a non-starter. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm coming across very negative today, but right now the whole thing feels sort of marginal to me. And that corner treatment, I think if it comes back with that, unless something is somehow, I can't foresee a way in which I would support that. I just don't want to be coy about
David,
it because I don't think it's
referring-
helpful to you all.
Are you referring to the open metro concept, right?
Yeah.
I'm in David's camp because it's so critically
too.
important. I mean, this is like the corner in Montgomery County.
It's a huge move.
And it's not like I'm gonna put extra burden on the applicant,
I
but
think it'll make it
there's some
easier
really good
for
understanding on,
them.
there's some really nice ideas coming forward here. There's no doubt about it. And so I think if you accelerate or push through, as Matt's asking, as long as we have the ability to see more and not make it a blessing, so to speak, it's a half a blessing, then I think that works.
Yeah, all of us saying, I don't want to require two options. It's up to the applicant. If you guys think that you still need to open that up,
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
I
so
think
what
what I'm
more-
understanding is it's either, hey, we need to make it truly secondary, right? Integrate it into the building more, bring the corner down, or something in the manner a little bit more akin to a couple of the precedents we were showing, or really just, hey, this is the moment and really integrate it into the design. It's those are the two directions I'm hearing from you all, and what we have presented, I think, is probably a mixture of the two. We were trying to create a more public open space that integrated with it. But it seems that the feeling is that it should be one or the other. So really go for it, integrate it into a big move, or let the building anchor the corner in the
Dominate the corner.
exactly. Yeah. So I think those are pretty clear to me, and we will probably study both of them. And there's a likelihood that, if you'd like to see the study, we could bring that along at the further detail. I think going to site plan, we need to get to that level of detail to really finalize and make sure one or the other works. So I think, moving forward is a good idea, so we can just really flush that idea out. But I think it's pretty clear it needs to be one of the two directions. So I don't think there's any confusion there.
Yep.
Okay.
That was a good response.
And things you hear at concept plan from other agencies might force your
Yeah.
hand one way or the other anyway, so.
I think the one other request that we should make to the applicant team is, because you guys are submitting to the expedited review process, and that's a 60-day review.
Mhm.
Could you come to the DAP before you submit for that?
Yeah.
So we can have,
Yeah, that's the plan.
That's what I was
Okay.
gonna offer up. We'll come to the DAP before our expedited plan is accepted, so that it's not constrained more than it needs to be in terms of the review.
Oh, a quick question, Grace. Do we get to see the site plan one time as part of this new process?
so you can see the site plan as many times as you need to be able to feel
Okay.
comfortable voting on the design excellence points that the panel feels is appropriate for the project.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think from the site plan / landscape perspective, haven't seen much. So I just, hope to see a lot more in that regard. Because, as we're talking about some of these things not stitching together, I mean, there's a lot that landscape can provide. It's just something that if it's made a part of the process, you'll see the ground plane in a much different light. So definitely we'll want to see more of that in the next submission.
Who is the
be
landscape
seeing a lot
architect?
more.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yeah.
What is it?
Oculus Don
We
Hoover.
got Don on.
Oculus, okay.
You,
Yeah,
you
this
will be
is
seeing
his
much
first,
more. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll have way more of that worked out in the articulated massing, the views, perspectives, all that's part of the typical site plan submission. So we'll really focus on that, and you'll get a lot more detail. That's just typically not what we focus on for the concept massing part of the project.
Thank
Thank
you all.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Nice progress.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll-
Good progress on
we'll-
mass.
We'll see you at site plan.
It was nice.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everybody.